Hello and welcome to this upgrading your AEG video. This is actually part of a series of videos which the playlist for should be linked in the corners and in the description below. I will just say a quick disclaimer of myself and Tom are not be-all and end-all experts. We have a fair amount of knowledge and everything said in these videos are our own personal opinions. So watch it and then go do your own research and come to your own conclusions before doing any teching. With that, enjoy the video. Most of the time, if I'm opening up a gearbox, it will be to give it a clean. Or maybe to redo the shimming.
And I'm not chasing, again, but then I'm not chasing really high performance.
No.
So, certain bits of it really don't matter. I don't need the best gears, I don't need the best piston, I don't need the best piston head. These things are nice, they're nice to have, but I'm not worrying about it because my rate of fire just isn't, I'm not running at 50 rounds a second.
No.
I don't need Siege Tech DSPs.
No. Although, what I will talk about inside a gearbox is the compression parts. Because, for me, to get your perceived accuracy up, it's all about getting your FPS consistency up. So if you can get... I aim for a deviation of plus or minus 5 FPS. So 10 FPS deviation, I think, is pretty much... is not massive, but not
This
super tough.
This does plus or minus 1.
Plus or minus 1. Right, okay.
Yeah, that gun is ridiculously... It's always been very good.
Yeah.
It was doing that stock. I mean, I cleaned it and
yeah.
I cleaned the cylinder and lubed it and checked the O-ring and did all that.
Yeah. So that's the thing. That's what I recommend doing. If you've done your hop-up mods and you're still getting a big FPS variance, it's time to crack open the gearbox, take your piston, your cylinder and your cylinder head and your nozzle out, take it all apart, clean out your cylinder, clean down your cylinder head, re-grease it with a bit of silicone grease and put it back together. No Teflon tape. That's
Teflon tape things, something's gone very wrong.
And then if you find that you've got a piston and a cylinder and you have greased up your cylinder head and you can cover the end of that and you've greased up your piston head and made sure that the O-ring is supple and you're running it back and forth in the cylinder and you're not getting any compression, then maybe it's time to get a new piston head. If that's the part.
If your stock one works and you're getting good air seal, just leave it alone.
Yeah. Oh, no,
the bits are designed to work together. So generally, if you're going to start upgrading the bits in your gearbox, I would suggest that you try and buy bits from the same manufacturer.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think in general, unless you're trying to do a very specific build, so you're going for a really high rate of fire for some stupid reason, or you're going for a really high trigger rate for reasons, you don't need to be changing out your powertrain stuff all that much. I think your gears can stay in there absolutely fine. Most stock gears are absolutely fine. In fact, I think pretty much all my guns run stock gears at the moment. And in terms of bearings and bushings, we haven't even touched on that yet. I don't think in the UK, there is no reason to change your bushings unless they are crappy plastic ones and changing them out. There's no need to change them really.
I sometimes wonder what the obsession with bearings is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the benefits of them. Like in fact, I bought bearings to put in the L85 purely to see what the difference would be. Do you want to know what the difference was?
Probably got worse.
I would like to know because I can't see one really.
I think that the size of the bearings in Airsoft use, I would, for reliability, I'd rather run bushings. Certainly on the sector gear.
Yeah.
Because it's got quite a lot of load on it.
I had this debate the other day with someone who's saying, "Oh, if you want to go for an 11-1, you need to put a full metal rack in," and I'm like, I don't think you do. But his school of thought was if you put a metal rack in and shim it right and AOE it right, it shouldn't have any issues. My school of thought is if something does go wrong, which guns inevitably do go wrong, plastic piston brakes, oh no, that's £7 for a new one.
Generally in any sort of mechanical design, electrical engineering, you want to have a weak point in the system somewhere.
Oh yeah.
It's going to go.
It's a fuse.
And it's easily, in the same way you have an electrical fuse and a plug, you want a mechanical fuse
Yeah.
in a gearbox or any drivetrain. You want something that's going to go before, in a car, you might want something on the drive shaft to go before your gearbox explodes.
Yeah.
If there's an obstruction. It's very simple. You might want the connections in your drive shaft going rather than your gearbox exploding and leaping through your leaping through the floor. That would be bad. And same in the gearbox, you want something that's going to go.
Yeah. Bryce just said you only need your release tooth to be metal. Pretty much, I'd say that, or like the last three, just so if you've got pre-cocking on, it's holding on metal teeth, not on plastic teeth. But your pickup and your couple after your pickup should really be plastic.
The only metal tooth in a Murray piston, which is actually what I'm running in that one at the moment, is the release tooth, which is metal.
Yeah, and that makes sense because they're not designed for pre-cocking, because they're not a pre-cock gun. And even with
it's going to blow at some point because I do run pre-cocking on it, but at the moment it's absolutely fine. But again, I'm not running a DSG. So
yeah, I think that's
you had that difference between us and some other players.
Yeah,
I'm building for reliability and for single time shots, and I'm not building for high speed and all that sort of stuff.
I think very much. So, if you are trying to build, okay, let's narrow it down, and we kind of covered pretty much most things in the gearbox, other than spring guide. You can change out if they're crap. If they're plastic, I tend to switch them out to a metal one.
Have you ever seen a broken plastic one though?
That's a good point. I have seen ones that have broken the teeth out of the gearbox, as in the locking teeth.
Yeah.
But the only times I'll change my spring guides really if they're metal is if the piston head has a bearing on it, but the spring guide doesn't. I'll change it to a bearing one, and all that does is it means is as the spring's compressing and decompressing, it sometimes gets a torque on it and wants to twist. And what it can do is if you've got an easy twist on one side and not easy twist on the other, it will start to jump twist and you'll get stuttering and all sorts, and it can damage one side. So if you're going to if one side has a bearing on, you should have a bearing on the other side really. I change out a spring if I need to change the power level. The other time I'll change out a spring is if it is really twangy. Because I don't. For me personally, when I fire a gun, I want it to sound like fa-dump, and not go fa-dump, ding 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 ding. Yeah, but that's that.
You remove a lot of that just by greasing them a little bit.
Exactly, you can grease them a bit. And then because I'm a snob and I'm trying to go for efficiency builds, I change. If I've got one that's just a linear spring, I'll change it out for a non-linear spring. So this is a standard linear spring, and as you can see, the entire way along the spring it's got the same pitch, whereas this is a non-linear spring. Oh, it's got hooked up in a wire on my table. This is a non-linear spring, and as you see, as it goes along, you get varying pitch. So you put it with the denser pitch towards the back of the gearbox, and the open pitch towards the piston, and then it's supposedly easier to compress. So it takes less energy to compress, but delivers more of a punch when it decompresses or puts the piston forwards.
If you need to change your spring, you may as well get something reasonably nice.
Yeah.
You don't have to go mental and buy a £70 Prometheus non-linear.
I tend to use SHS or rockets, but mainly I buy them through AK2M4, and every batch he gets, he'll pull a couple out and test them and tell you what the average.
Yeah, he's pretty cool actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's another point I wanted to bring up. Is that generally springs are sold in M and a number. That number is allegedly the meters per second that a 0.2 gram BB will do at the end. But there's so much variable.
Yeah, I always wonder what they use as the test platform, and I'm assuming it's probably going to be like an M4. They're going to take an M4A1 and go, this is our.
But what gearbox, what compression, what.
Yeah, exactly. It's.
What hop setting were they using?
Yeah.
So. Be prepared. Says this is why, and then there's the whole thing about cutting springs. I've never cut a spring, so I'm not. People do it. I would recommend that you don't, but I can see why people have to.
Yeah.
But I would recommend that you don't cut a spring.
And if you do,
just deal with the fact that I think a lot of that comes from that chasing that magic 350, isn't it?
Do I still have it? I've got a spring that's like this long that I pulled out of someone's gun, so they bought a second hand, asked me to do some work on it, and someone had just cut it down so much it's unbelievable. Oh, here it is. Look at the length of this. Compare it.
Is that like a short stroker or something?
No, it was just It's a really, really hard. Like I can barely compress this bugger.
Yeah, it's like some M140.
Yeah.
I put it in AEG.
Compared, so I think this is a stock TM recoil spring.
Right. It has to be boigy soft.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things I was just thinking about then is a lot of the stuff people put in their guns are built for much higher power.
Oh yeah. A lot of people follow, especially in the UK, a lot of people go online and look up builds that will have been made by Americans or made by, people out in the Far East where there's just no FPS limits.
Yeah.
So America, it's generally, 400, 420 is a standard gun, and then 500 is like DMR territory, and then 550 is sniper territory. Like, we're quite civilized about our limits here.
I think a lot of people's guns are massively overspec'd. Now, don't get me wrong, if you want to chuck a load of money, and there are lots of people out there that will very happily take a lot of money off you to build stuff, feel free.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't do it, but absolutely, if you've got the spec cash and you want to spend £900 getting your Marui gearbox upgraded, go for it.
To be fair though, if you build a gun that can withstand like a 500 FPS build, and you're running a one dual build in it, you know that most of those parts are not going to break.
It's going to run forever. Should run forever. You need to have a word with the tech that you spent £900 getting the gearbox done on. Personally, I think really in the UK we don't need it, and if you're not chasing mad rate of fires, a nice moderate, as you say, SHS, ZCI, rocket style parts, if you're going to replace stuff because it's broken, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you don't need, and it's not going to cost you a lot of money. And actually, I was talking to I've been talking to some Marui techs, not necessarily the famous ones, but the guys that work in shops and actually just smash through Marui upgrades all the time, and they will tell you actually just leave the bloody piston in.
Yeah. So the way I see it is anything inside a gearbox doesn't really need to be replaced unless it's broken.